Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. I used to say good morning, but like you just don't know where people are anymore, right? Even the people on the call, you just don't know where they are. My name is Evan Sohn, and I have the pleasure of being a managing director here over at Revelio Labs. And today we're going to do a webinar titled Unlocking Alpha with Workforce Intelligence. A lot of things to cover, and just two incredible people that we're going to be talking to. Got black and white photos from everybody. So why don't you just quickly introduce yourselves, a little bit about your background, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, my name's Lisa. I'm the chief economist here at Revelio Labs. I lead a team of economists. We write weekly newsletters. We're always neck deep in the data, trying to find, the next story around the workforce. My background's in economics. I have a PhD in labor economics, and I've been with the company for 5 years at this point.
Fantastic. And Ying?
My name is Ying. I'm the founder and CEO of Implied. My background is actually in fundamental investing. Started my career at Goldman on the equity research side. Spent 5 years at Citadel, and then before I started the company, I was a portfolio manager at Balyasny. We built Implied to really automate a lot of the grunt work for a buy-side investor. So we are very fortunate to be partnering up with Revelio to kind of show you guys how you can use the data in a way that can, generate alpha and find signals without you having to do the grunt work.
Fantastic. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a step back for a moment? Let's give Lisa a few minutes just to talk about what is workforce data, and then we'll jump into what I think is just an incredibly exciting opportunity, which is really helping funds and investors and family offices really empower everything that they're doing with AI. So go ahead, Lisa. Why don't you talk? You want to take over the slides?
Let's dive into it. Revelio Labs is really we're workforce intelligence. We collect tons of data that is publicly available on the internet from professional online profiles, job postings, government data, sentiment data, you name it. We collect everything, standardize it, and make it available to our clients. That allows you to track companies, understand skills, cities, discover talent. It's sort of a one size fits all data set on anything to do with the labor market. We have an incredible volume of data. So we map over 30 million companies globally, lots of profiles, 1 billion. Every time I look at these slides, this number seems to be going up, 5 billion job postings, and tons of sentiment ratings and reviews from a whole lot of different sources. This is obviously a very old slide that I threw in here, but I think it sort of just shows the breadth of all the different data sets and some of the sources that we're actually collecting it from. But I think that the real value add that we provide as a company is, okay, so this data comes to us incredibly messy, right? And also not directly usable for research or for any type of analysis. And I think we're a team of economists, data scientists, data engineers, and we're solving a ton of the problems that the data sort of inherently has. So sampling bias is a big one, lags in reporting, company identification, company resolution, standardizing job titles, no way to compare seniority, you name it. Basically, for all of these like inherent problems in some of the data, we have fixes and unify the data in that way. And I think that's really where a lot of the strength of the data comes from, because the time to insight once a client get their hands on it is really short. So that's really cool. Our clients really range a ton of different clients here. Obviously, we're talking about the investment management use cases, but just to sort of give you the broad overview, right, that like this can be used for just about anything that touches the labor market, human capital analysis, macro trends, recruiting, and then to be honest, our sort of home market and first set of clients have always been in investment management and the financial sectors. I'll shut up in just a moment, Evan, and let Ying talk about all the stuff. But I can't help myself just sort of to throw out some highlights of recent newsletters that we've written, just because I think it highlight some of the things that we can do, and then I think Ying can go in and go. I'm not a I speak high level and use cases. We'll go into the nitty-gritty real quick, but yeah, just some of the cool research we've recently been able to do, right? I think everybody has seen this plot at this point. This is basically the S&P 500 versus headcounts over time, and there's just this discontinuation that we're seeing, where basically headcount has been flatlining, and we've been really wanting to dive in to see what's happening. And AI adoption seems to be really, really highly correlated with some of the largest growth and market and per employee market cap that we're seeing. So basically, like the biggest offenders here are also the ones that are adopting the most AI. So that's something that you can do with the data. And then we're seeing that this whole narrative of software engineers and developers going out of style is probably not entirely true when you're looking at the actual like creators of AI. So the companies with the largest growth and market cap per employee are actually the ones that are hiring the most software engineers and developers. So really leaning in on some of the AI talent. I think it's just like one of these examples where once you uncover such a trend, you can then start looking for it in the data and see, who else is also hiring a ton of software engineers right now, and maybe trying to emulate some of the successes that we have seen. Let me stop right here. I think that's enough from the Revelio side, just to give you a little bit of an overview. But Ying, take it away.
Great. I'm
Awesome.
going to
So
share.
what's really interesting is that we've had let's call it like two types of clients at Revelio. We sort of had the people that use the data, as you said before, and they would take our data and then do stuff with it, right? We always knew that you could find this alpha inside of the data, but we weren't doing it, right? They were doing it. We were handing all this data over to the quant funds, the long short, fundamentals, et cetera. And they had to actually take the data and then find all that information out there. And as the world is really moving where people are so much more front and center in terms of the overall conversation about the markets, the capital markets, the labor markets, I was dying to find a company that we can actually work with who could take our data and correlate it to actual financial information. And I could not be more excited when I ran into Ying at another conference and agreed to partner together. And without further ado, Ying, take it away.
Thank you, Evan. And before I jump into some of the examples to showcase the Revelio data, I also want to mention a little bit about the platform because we do aggregate a lot of data that investors already need to use, right? Think about filings, transcripts, a lot of quantitative data, a lot of macro data in there already. So our platform really try to touch every part of research process. And today I want to focus on the research piece. Basically, you can ask any question in this little bar or type in research. I want to go to the other end of the spectrum from what Lisa talked about. Macro would go very micro, right? So let's think about a company that is very heavy in kind of their revenue is very much tied to headcount. Paycom is an example. So I can just say, hey, I want you to forecast their next quarter's quarterly revenue using Revelio data, right? This is pure natural language. I did give a little bit instruction. I always said, AI is very much like an intern. The more instruction you give it, the better it will be. I give a little instruction on what I want to see. So things like maybe, test each one with different lags and stuff like that. And I asked it for one simple chart to tell me, based on your model, what is a prediction? What was the actual reported result? What is your forecast for the next unreported quarter? What is consensus? So this chart is a little bit small, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit to show you a bit. So what you can see here is historically, the model actually tracks pretty well. It tracks actually pretty well. If you zoom in a little bit, you will see a little bit more divergence. But what it's very interesting is, our forecast is actually pretty close to consensus right now. So that's actually a good thing, right? It actually validates where Revelio data is. So what's also interesting is we asked it to look at all the variable it used. It is a multivariable model. So what is all the variable used, which includes Revelio data, but it can also include some other data, macro data it pulled. But you can see that Revelio's headcount year-over-year growth data is by far the most predictive. And it's least lagged, right? So you want concurrent or leading indicator. In this case, it's a concurrent indicator. And so this is a really good, I thought, a very good example to showcase how valuable Revelio data is. And from an investor perspective, I think there are definitely funds that has a lot of resources, that have a lot of data teams that can take the Revelio data in raw form and kind of manipulate it. But what's good about our platform is you don't need a large team to do that. You can actually, design a query, run this. You can actually schedule run this every single month, every single day, every single earnings period, and it can get a result basically feed to you whenever you schedule it. So that's an example. Evan, should we go to another example?
Yeah, this is great.
Great. Cool. The second example, I was trying to be creative here. I was thinking about Revelio data is incredibly rich, right? There are so many different things about job titles, regions. So I thought, can we use Revelio data to build a cost parameter that we can use to correlate with compensation cost or, at least OpEx overall, right? For a lot of these tech companies, compensation cost is the biggest component in operating expenses. So what I did here, I'll actually show you some of the prompt, is one, I want to look at location, job function mix, seniority. So all the things that Lisa mentioned that Revelio had to clean, we use all of that data and try to come up with an index, a kind of a cost index. And then we use that cost index, historical cost index, to correlate with the OpEx, reported OpEx. Obviously, a lot of times, I think Lisa and everyone at Revelio who work on the data probably knows that you can have biases. You have to address these biases. So I ask the model to, do the correlation, figure out what the bias is, address it. I also hit the last 4 quarters as out of sample. So use whatever before 4 quarters ago as training data and then build a model for me. And obviously, every company will have slightly different results. We did run this for a few companies. I thought Meta is most interesting. You can see here, this is kind of all the reported results. This is a model forecast for the out of sample periods. It's not perfect, but directionally it trends, right? But what's most interesting is look at where the model forecast is versus consensus. Right? Consensus is forecasting a significantly higher cost for Meta than our model forecast. Obviously, there are a lot of potentially other reasons. Right? It could be this is really labor force costs rather than total compensation. Maybe Meta is going to spend a lot of money on tokens. That's totally possible. But what investor can do is layer on their domain knowledge about what Meta said about how much token costs are they going to do, how much other kind of non-human capital costs are they going to occur. You can combine that commentary with this data to evaluate, do you think consensus is in the right ballpark, or can you take a differentiated view that I'm going to be meaningfully above or below consensus? One other thing about implied is after you ask a question, you can actually follow up the question. Be like, hey, can you tell me what management actually said about other costs? Then you can actually add that in there to be like, okay, knowing the management commentary, can you actually give me an updated result? So you can go back and forth with the model to come up with an analysis that makes sense to you. So I thought it was another interesting example. Not every company we tested had that much of a gap. So I guess we'll find out next earnings season how accurate this forecast is. But I thought that was a very kind of interesting analysis. Evan, good to move on to next or
Yeah,
any
sure.
questions?
Keep going. I got a bunch of questions, but you keep
Okay,
going. This is great.
cool. I have I'm going in order of very ticker level to slightly higher level. We never will get to the level that Lisa mentioned, but I think we're going to slightly higher level. Another use case is, I think this is probably anyone who's kind of listened to the market have been hearing a lot of these layoff announcements recently, right? I think Wix today just announced a 20% cut. There's a lot of these labor commentaries, and everyone's kind of blaming on AI. I think there are two things you can do, and then this is an example of one. So there's a Block one of the first one to announce a pretty meaningful announcement. There are two things you can do. This is one of them. That is, after their announcement, can I see where they're actually cutting the cost? Where are they're actually cutting? What title, what kind of job positions are they cutting, right? So this is actually interesting. They announced a 40% cut, about 4,000 employees in February. And then you can see immediately in the month after, engineering, product, customer success are the biggest hit. So this is kind of interesting because I think if you look at the earlier data, the engineering hiring is still very strong, but we are starting to see signs of companies actually starting to cut. One thing I didn't have here, but I did have on the other Revelio flyer is we also did another check. I think another question, which is a little less relevant for forward-looking, but it is irrelevant in thinking about kind of the context of the hiring is a lot of these hirings actually came after years of hiring, meaningful hiring acceleration in those roles. So you can argue a lot of people are blaming AI, but is it truly AI driven, or are they just right sizing? So you can do that. Say, hey, think about like sales marketing, for example. This is Block. I think Block actually has seen hiring slow down pretty quickly even before the announcement. But for most of other companies we've run, you can see meaningful hiring increase, and all of a sudden they're announcing a cut and they're kind of reverting. So some of them might be just getting a lot of the over hiring kind of out of the system. So I thought that was a kind of an interesting one as well. Okay, next, I want to do a little bit higher level, right? Kind of understanding maybe a whole industry. Think about everyone's worried about SaaS being completely eliminated by AI. How has SaaS hiring trended over the last few cycles? All right. So it's kind of funny we're talking about cycles because in the last 5 years, I think we've gone through a lot. Like last 6 years, so we've gone through a lot, right? 2020, we have COVID that hit, right? And then everyone kind of fell down. And then at the 2021, I think somewhere in 2021, is you start to see hiring back, people doing more remote hires and whatnot. And then when you get to 2022, you start to see higher interest rate. That's when the first wave of firing started happening in the SaaS world, right? And then you see 2022 is also October is a launch of ChatGPT. No immediate impact whatsoever. I think the market was still kind of working through some of the hiring that's done during the 2021 era. And you actually saw an increase in hiring right after the AI adoption started occurring, right? And I think it's kind of interesting, like, oh my God, we need AI. Let's hire more engineers. I think we're at a point, like which started in late 2024, early 2025. And then we're starting to hit a point where a lot of people have kind of somewhat experimented with AI. They've kind of have an idea of what they want to go with AI. And then the idea is now okay, how do we justify our AI investment by thinking about the return on investment? So I think we're starting to see larger companies started trimming. So I thought that was very interesting. At least that's a story I am kind of forming in my head based on this chart. But it's very interesting where you can have AI do all the research. So you don't have to remember any part of the cycle. I actually never mentioned anything about this cycle. I actually said, use all of the application software in my coverage and going back 8 years, and then think about different hiring booms and resets and whatever it is. And then it did the research on its own to go figure out when did each part of those cycles starts. So I thought that was very interesting, combining everything in one chart. Cool.
Can I get access to this?
Yeah.
It might shorten some of my my days, to be honest.
Yeah, it's great, right? And some of these I was like, some of these actually did take a little bit of time. I'm trying to see. This one took about 9 minutes, about 10 minutes. But it's still like a lot faster than a human can do, right? Like it's great that it just go fetch things and then kind of consolidate everything. So
do you see the code it generates too? do this?
We can enable it, but for most of part, most of our users are not technical, so we don't disclose our code just because like most people don't know Python with this point of showing the Python.
fair
But
enough.
we have an option for technical people to show the code.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. Last thing, high level things. I think Lisa showed you kind of the higher momentum, I think, on a yearly basis. What if we look at on a 3-month basis? How things have trended for different sectors, right? In this case, this is a longer prompt because I'm trying to gather all these information. By the way, this is also the incredible part, right? I gave a bunch of different sectors, different tickers to look at. It's a lot of data to consolidate, and it's able to gather a lot of information. So it basically look at monthly momentum in hiring based on different sectors. And these are the 4 kind of, you have the AI, you have the normal economy, I think payroll, HR kind of it signals the overall economy. You have the financial sector, and then you have the consumer sector. And you can see the hiring trend, and you see consumer has done really poorly. And then you don't really hear about this as often just because every headline is AI, AI, AI. So I thought that was very interesting, just overall how weak it is. I also thought it was interesting, the software AI piece, you can see momentum slowing down. People are not hiring as aggressively. I think, if anything, I think we started to see more firing as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then overall, you can see things are kind of trending worse in the last few months. So I think, something like this, I think it's worthwhile to schedule to run it maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months or something like that. So you can at least get a picture of, okay, what does the overall market look like? What part of cycle we're in? This might not fall into any specific stock pitch, but I think it can help you kind of mentally think about what kind of macro regime we're in, what kind of macro part of the cycle we're in. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. But
I do a weekly
shameless plug. We also track this on a monthly basis.
Great.
I do a weekly job posting report, and like, look, I think that we're all trying to solve the problem of how to correlate it to something that's got some monetization, on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
can we go back to the Paycom example?
Yeah.
So, early on, that was where I was getting calls, right? I was getting calls from hedge funds that actually had big positions in IT staffing firms, firms where people are just so much of the revenue mix.
Yeah.
And so how can you do that? So when you build this model, right, then you could say, all right, here's my run this every week against my my set of companies.
Yes. So it's actually pretty easy. You can turn this into a workflow. And it can basically turn this into a workflow. I'll show you kind of you say, okay, I'm going to turn this into a workflow. These are the steps I'm going to take, blah, 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 key settings. Okay, so then there are a few things you can do. One is, when do you want to run it? You can run it on demand, or you can say, run it, I want to run it monthly on first of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern. So you can set that. You can say output, I just want to try, that's why none of these are super important. The trigger is interesting because a lot of things we can even trigger on events. I want to run this when the earnings call finishes. Maybe I'm trying to use Revelio data with management commentary. I can trigger it whenever the call finishes. Okay, do that. Looks good, save. Okay, then it will save it into a workflow. I'll show you kind of what a workflow page so that we don't lose that page. But it'll turn into this workflow page. I will go to this workflow page. The workflow page then has, I think it hasn't fully saved yet, but okay, it's going to save. But let me show you that these are all the workflows I already have. And these workflow can be run, schedule run. You can see I have some stuff that's schedule run every single day. I have a daily US economy health check run every single day. And then that, whatever is run, you can check what the output is. So this is basically every day I have a US economy tell me how healthy the US economy is based on all the macro data that comes out in the last 2 days. So every day it runs it for it, sends me an email and tell me this is how everything look. But you can basically do that with all of this. Okay, so it's saved. So let me, if I refresh this page, You can see Revelio revenue forecast. And then it will show up on the calendar whenever it runs.
Amazing. So are you also getting earnings calls? You're getting earnings transcripts?
Yes, we do live transcription ourselves.
Okay.
So what I can show you super quickly. Right now, I think today is actually pretty heavy conference day, but right now you can actually scroll down. Basically, we ask a user to put in your coverage list, and let's see, not loading. I just refresh it real quick. We ask a user to put out a coverage list, and we aggregate for your coverage any company that has any earnings call, conference presentation, basically anything already like covered. What time is it? Noon. Okay, I don't have anything live, but we can see right now is in my coverage. But you can see right now is you can click onto any conference, and then it will open the events page. And this will open a transcript. And you can, by the way, you can open multiple events at the same time. So maybe I'll do like Apollo, whatever. There are a bunch of these. Oh, sorry. These are actually upcoming events. You can see all the upcoming events. Maybe pick one that's already done. Maybe Visa. And then you can open multiple events at the same time. And you can see there are two sections. There's a notes section and there's the events section, a transcript section. During a live call, you will see live transcript for every single event you open. So you can listen to one, track everything else. We also then have live notes that looks more like this. It's taken on key topics as a call is ongoing, and then finish notes when the call is done for you to do models, to kind of examine, you can even see, okay, I'm reading this is interesting. I want to see that specific part of the transcript. You can jump to that transcript. You can then right click, be like, I want to listen to this part. And then it jumps to that specific part of the audio as well. So we have all of that integrated.
So, in an earnings call, the CEO or the CFO says, "Oh, we're beefing up our sales department." Right? You can actually track that,
Yes.
right?
Yes, you can track that against Revelio data, and they can even do a historical analysis. How credible is this management? Whenever they say we're beefing it up, we're firing, how accurate is that? Do you actually see it in the data after? Because actually, some managements are much more credible than others, right? So yeah, you can do all of that.
That's that's awesome. That's just
The
great.
immediate bullshit detector.
Yeah, it really is.
Yes.
It really, really is.
Yes.
That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about your business just for a
Yeah.
second. Are
Yeah.
you augmenting, in the world of augmenting or replace, are you augmenting the analyst? Are you replacing the analyst? Are you, what giving superpowers to the analyst? How do you view yourselves?
Yeah. It's a great question. We get asked this a lot. I think the right adjective I want to think about is we help accelerate. We help accelerate the decision-making process. I worked as a very junior analyst all the way to PM, right? I know how much of the workflow is manual work. My view is analysts and PM should focus on decision making, building a mental model so that you can recognize patterns. And your time should not be spending on gathering data, doing repetitive things. So our goal is to help you automate all the repetitive things so that you don't have to do it. And then you can get to the decision faster. So our ultimate goal is I think we can make the market more efficient if everyone's decision making is faster.
Yeah, no, you can imagine a hedge fund saying or a fund saying, "Hey, look, go through. I'm questioning the bullshit of of management. So go
Yes,
through all their transcripts and find that every time they talked about people, and then look up, data to
exactly.
see whether. And now you just have all that information at your fingertips, if you will.
Yeah,
No pun intended. And
exactly, exactly.
and then what about predicting? Are you taking in job posting data also?
Hmm. Yeah.
So
So
can you do predictions of like what this company might look like, OpEx wise or people, from a salary perspective wise?
yeah. So the way it works, you can see like when I ask it to look at Revel data, I didn't give a lot of instructions. The reason why I want to showcase is that we have our platform has basic understanding of Revel data already. Like we had to do a lot of, like when we partner up onboarding your data, we had to do a lot of training or teaching, not even training, like teaching the platform how to deal with the Revel data. How do you generate a route? Let's say you will say, I want you to take into account, so maybe look at the meta barometer, right? I want you to take into account the future posting as well. You can just mention it in the prompt. Say, hey, in this case, actually, I think it might have already included the job posting potentially. Let me actually take a look at this. See if I can actually see what data. Oh yeah, it's already taking into job posting data.
Amazing.
Evan. So like you can, but anything specific you want to do, you can just make sure you do this. It's kind of like how you would, give instruction to a human, right? Make sure you use this. But otherwise, it will just take its liberty to, based on its own knowledge about Revelio data, and kind of route to different analysis.
So before we started the session, we were talking about this presentation that we were both at, a fund that's actually claimed an AI first fund, right? Where there, I think, three people, a couple $100 million, and AI agents. Do you see that being a greater model? The solopreneur, if you will, or the small fund being, a bunch of traders or a bunch of smart people surrounded by agents.
I think that definitely is going to be the model. I think that's true for every sector. I think with AI, I think fewer people can do a lot of things. Like even like my firm, right? We're very small. I think we couldn't have imagined building this with the team of our size without AI. So I think that's definitely true. That said, I think maybe like this is not your question, Evan, but I also want to think about like limitations of AI, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone's very AI pilled. AI can do everything. But at the end of the day, AI is still pattern matching. AI is just especially language model, it's next token prediction. It's based on language, based on the information coded in your language. I'm going to predict what happens next. So it's not true reasoning. It's not true kind of, fully understand it. So that's number one. So I still think this is why I always believe, like, I believe in an AI native hedge fund that helps accelerate the decision process, but I don't believe AI to make the decision for people. Like, I don't believe a hedge fund comes out and say, we are AI driven and we're going to
Yeah.
generate, like, 5 shot. I just don't believe that, that's that. The other thing I would say is, I think what this allows the industry to do is, once you don't have to do the groundwork, you can actually think of more creative way to ask more creative questions. Like we get this question a lot when we pitch to hedge fund. We're like, oh, if you sell this platform to everyone, wouldn't everyone get to the same alpha? I'm like, no, like if you different PMs hiring the same person will generate different P&Ls, because what does that PM having his or her mind about what should I do, what question should I ask matter more than the whoever person's working for that PM, right? So I think that is very critical. So I have seen, like, I think when we talk to hedge funds, a lot of times people are still using AI as a glorified search and summarization, meaning what did management say? Give me last 20 quarters, blah, blah, blah data. I think most of people are still kind of at that stage. I think that the beauty of AI is once it frees you up, you can do a lot of interesting things. So think about, one of our clients, where we're talking about it, went to a conference, and basically, and it was like, I want to prepare for question, but I want to focus on questions management invaded during earnings call. So he can do a thing. Hey, look at all the conference companies in my coverage that's going to this conference. Look at their earnings transcript. Look at the Q&A section specifically. Is there any topic they evaded? Can you actually give me a grid by company, by topic, who's evading what question? And then based on that, I can form a more interesting question to ask management. That's very interesting. I think the beauty of this platform, where you can put together quantitative analysis on top of qualitative data, is very interesting too. So give me an example. How many AI? How many times did management mention AI? Well, I want to plot that quarter, right? That is a quantitative analysis of a qualitative data source. It's hard to do that right now, but we can allow people to do it. So I think, like, hopefully people with freed up time can think of more interesting thing, get a more deeper insight. And I think that's really the way to go. And for AI native hedge fund, I think that is what people are aiming for.
Amazing.
I think it
When you,
also, sorry,
no, go
if I
ahead.
may, in your case, Ying, I think it decreases user error too, right? Because you said you had this whole onboarding session with, Revelio Client Success. They showed you, like how everything's coded, how
Yeah.
this should be used and everything. So then hopefully, people using the platform can directly basically like jump into the insights, as opposed to
Yes.
a small fund that would have to onboard our data from scratch. That would just you'd have to jump through so many more hoops, right? Like
Totally. Totally. And at least, and Evan, you guys know too, like, yes, like, if you talk about very sophisticated quant funds, they're very sophisticated. They can ingest your data, automatic analysis, whatever. But
Of course,
most of
yeah.
the fundamental funds are still in Excel era. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right, like
Yeah.
they're still doing math in Excel. And it's interesting, like we get a lot of questions about like how do you audit AI? How do you make sure AI is working? I was like, look, like it's hard to check Excel work too, like
Totally. Totally.
so I think yes, definitely that. And I definitely think that like what our goal is try to raise everyone's kind of like floor on how
Mm.
quickly can they do that. But I think everyone can take their analysis a little bit further, right? Like we can provide a very standard, like if you ask a question, a very simple question, correlate this, you can do that. But if someone can give a little bit twist, like I actually know you should correlate this, but you should also take into account this factor in this given season or whatever it is, then they can elevate that insight too. So what we want to do is kind of raise kind of the floor of all the insights that every fund can get access to.
Yeah, Lisa, I was looking at this like a framework, that they've got this great framework or a great toolkit where you've got this, inference engine trained on Revelio that can now build, answers to questions that one might have, right?
Oh,
So it's,
totally. Especially if the counterfactual is someone like letting loose their Claude code on like an
that's
untrained
right.
version
Yes.
without like a good memory
Yes.
and skill file, right? Like
That's
I'm
right.
that
so
just
glad
scares
you,
that
yeah.
scares me.
Yeah. Lisa, I'm so glad you brought it up because we get this question a lot. Like I think MCP is a very buzzy word right now. Everyone's like, oh, like that's easy. Like I will have built some sort of chatbot. I'm gonna connect everything with MCP. And like, but one, I don't believe, especially for complicated data, especially like Revelio data is pretty big and it's pretty complicated. Like we had to do a lot of figuring out ourselves, human. We have to understand the data first before we can even instruct LLM how to figure out the data, right? And I think MCP number one for really complex data, it's not sufficient. It's just really hard to find that. But the second thing I think is people don't understand is NCP eats a lot of context window. So when you're hooking up a multiple, let's say 5 to 10 data sources, all of a sudden the context window left for your actual question gets significantly shorter. So that I think creates an issue too. But anyways, yeah, we truly believe in every data set you integrate, you need to understand that data set and actually program in there on how to access it. Some examples, what not to do, for example. And that comes with experience. Like a raw AI agent cannot do that. You just don't have enough experience to do that.
I'm still bashing my Claude code into submission, like it's taking time.
By the way, I've had more, conversations, with voice mode of "you're wrong," yelling at, ChatGPT, "You're making a mistake, you're wrong."
Yeah, that's
And
not
it's,
what
"Oh
I
yeah,
said.
you're right, you're right." I'm like, "How many times you gonna tell me I'm right? Like, stop it! Like, it's enough already."
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
so and you guys been around for how long?
We've started in 2023.
Okay,
Yeah.
and about just give me a range of like how many end customer, how many end users do you have now?
Yeah. We have about 200 customers. We are
Amazing.
in five of the top, maybe six now actually, of the top 10 hedge funds. And I would say our user base definitely skew a little bit more hedge fund than mutual funds. But we're also pretty quickly expanding to all of them. Yeah.
And so even the top ones that probably have their own data science
Mm,
team that
yeah.
ours plus yours times whatever is their number, they're still
Yeah.
using it. Any reason is just, the path. It's just a shortcut to getting the answer.
Yeah, it's a very good question. We get this question a lot, like who do you consider be competitor of yours? And literally our biggest competitor are internal built tools. But I think there are a few things I think that were different. Number one is most of the internal built tool, including all of the external competitors we have as well, are very chatbot focused. It's very much like it looks like ChatGPT, right? It basically asks a question, you get an answer. I think we are probably one of the only one that combines not just a chatbot, but like we have dashboards, we have live events. We actually have our own AI native Excel spreadsheet integrated, right? So everything kind of like we're building a whole new, what I call like a new stack for a investment professional, like everything rebuilt from ground up AI native. So that's number one. We're the only one. Number two is I think we a lot of times we have the benefit of PMs actually pay for tools out of their own budget. So even if something is built internally, if they want to try something, they can still try an external tool because they're paying for it anyway. So we definitely have internal teams will be like, oh, I want to try this, and they use like, we really like this. Maybe I use my internal tool to connect with my internal data, but I use Imply for something else. One last thing I want to mention, I think this is something very special about us, is I believe one of the most important yet missing piece of all of this is domain knowledge. I think if you think about Claude, OpenAI, the way I think about these large language models, they are like universities. They produce students who can reason, who have some basic idea of how to use different tools, but they don't know the industry. And in the public market, especially in fundamental investing, knowing the industry matters. So let me give you a very simple example. Say Snowflake had a huge blowout quarters. You say, hey, can you summarize Snowflake's earnings call for me? You cannot produce a really good earnings call summary unless you know what are things people actually care about Snowflake at this given point, which changes over time, right? It's not static. How would you present that information? You probably want to present information. These are the metrics that matters. This is what Snowflake said. This is what the street expectation is. There are certain way about how to what information to gather, how to present that information. That is what I call domain knowledge. So we spent last actually 2.5 years building a ticker level domain knowledge for each company. So it knows, it has information like what are things that matters. It has management credibility. It has management confidence. We actually track filler words during earnings calls and see does management all of a sudden on specific topics start saying more us than normal, right? We actually track that. That's a knowledge piece. So what we are hoping to build is not just the tool itself, but we connect that with data and with knowledge. And I think that's a whole complete kind of package. And I think very few competitor or internal tools does that.
Well, this is awesome, and Lisa and I are probably going to come back to you and talk about doing some joint
Yes,
what's it called? Some collaboration on some articles and stuff like that. I think
of
there's some
course.
really good stuff. A couple of indexes we'll put together,
Yeah.
just correlating. I think this could be just really exciting. Thank you so much, Ying. Lisa, always a pleasure. Thank you. A little plug for Lisa's team. I got more calls yesterday. There was an article that came out about teen summer jobs being down, and it was data from Lisa and her team. And again, I think not a day goes by where people are talking about labor market, AI, augmentation, et cetera. And Revelio is really at the epicenter of it. What you do with that data, how do you turn that data into tradable alpha, is really something that I've been looking for a while for a company that does it, and Ying and Implied just do a great job taking that data and turning it into something that folks like me and Lisa have just been dreaming about. Someone taking the data and showing us how to correlate that data into something that is just actionable from an investment perspective. So really, thank you so much, Ying. Can you give the audience coordinates of how to find you?
Yes. You can email me at ying@imply.com or visit our website, www.imply.com. So yeah. I'm also on
Got it.
Bloomberg. Anyone on Bloomberg can find me on Bloomberg as well.
There you go. That's how you know you're from finance, by the way. You got to, I know people that they haven't worked in years, but still have their Bloomberg
On my
Bloomberg email
Bloomberg.
address.
Yeah.
Also, just to let everyone know that there's a 30-day trial of Implied with Revelio. So you can actually use Revelio with Implied as part of a free trial there as well. And then really fantastic. We've partnered together on some really great pricing that really works on a per pod basis. So very aggressive to really drive more utilization. My name again is Evan Sohn. I'm available at evan@reveliolabs.com. Lisa is available at lisa@reveliolabs.com. Be sure to go to our website. We subscribe to our newsletter. We monthly, coming out next week, is our monthly RPLS report, which is our version of the Bureau of Labor Statistics report. So we do our own version of it. That's been amazing. And so again, thank you so much, Ying. Awesome. Really, the journey is just getting started. We'll do this again in a couple months, and we'll talk about good customer wins and how people are using workforce data to really drive incredible alpha. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.